Okay, welcome back, everybody. Voices on Chain, conversations with the formerly incarcerated. Welcome again. We're here at the Rogue Valley Growers Market in Medford at Hawthorne Park. And just a quick shout out to the Rogue Valley Growers Market. We appreciate your business. Come on down, get beautiful produce grown locally, and support the local economy. And like I always say in the beginning of my podcasts, nobody will remember your name at a big store, but down here, we know who you are. There's human to human contact, and we miss you when you're not here. So come on down and experience this beautiful little setting for yourself and support local vendors. There's all sorts of cool things that you can buy here. So that's my little intro. And I have a beautiful guest here this morning. We have
Hi, my name is Brandy.
Brandy. Welcome, Brandy.
And Desmond Stacks again.
Desmond Stacks, our mainstay regular here.
Yeah. Right.
Thanks, guys, for being willing to come down and chat. So this morning we're just going to chat a little bit about incarceration and how the impact it has had on kids and children, because that was a theme that we brought up here last night or last week, Desmond, with you. And so before we jump into that, though, Brandy, do you want to just introduce yourself and just give us a history of whatever you feel like you want to share?
Yeah, my name is Brandy. I'm originally from Klamath Falls. I've been incarcerated 5 times. I've been to federal prison twice and state prison 3 times. And in the midst of that, my child was also left and abandoned and kind of wrapped up in a lot of it. And I'm seeing a really big impact on him now. And I'm just trying to do everything that I can to give him a better life today than he's ever had, than I've ever had. And we're just trying to learn together and grow.
Yeah. And you like don't fit the stereotypical image of a woman who's been incarcerated. And so I love bringing folks like you onto this, because everybody has sort of an image of what somebody who's been in prison looks like, and you certainly don't fit that bill.
Thank you. I've made a lot of changes and worked really hard on not looking, the way that I used to, and just carrying myself differently. I feel like that's a big part of it.
Yeah. And like, what kind of space were you in back then when you were committing crimes and doing your
I was addicted to money.
money? Yeah.
Extremely addicted to money, and so I think that boils down to I had a very low self-esteem, and I suffered from abandonment as a child, in many different ways, emotionally and physically. So I was reaching out outside of myself to get my needs met by unhealthy relationships, money. I could buy my happiness, I thought.
Yeah.
And it led me down a road of selling drugs and getting deeper and deeper into it. And in the end, I still wasn't happy.
In the end, you still weren't happy, right? Yeah. So we have that sort of illusion that money's going to bring happiness, but you discovered that it actually doesn't. It brought you to a certain kind of misery, right? In a way of being incarcerated is kind of a certain kind of misery.
Yeah. The first time I went, I think when I got out, I was clean for about a year, and then I got in an unhealthy relationship, and that wasn't working. And then we broke up, and I had to find a way to support myself, and I didn't have the work history because I hadn't lived a legit life. And so I did what I knew how to get money, and I went back to selling drugs. And then the second time I got out, and I only lasted 8 days because I stayed in contact with the same type of people the whole time I was in.
Right.
And then the third time was a federal one, so they moved me over to Medford on pretrial, and the third time was my son was only 2 years old, and he was there with me when the feds busted me. So that was he probably doesn't remember a lot of that because he was only 2, but he remembers the impact of it. I was on pretrial for about a year and a half, 2 years, and then I had to go away for 5 years. I only did 3 of it, but then when I came home, he and I did really good for a few years, and again, like I fell in that gap. What had happened was I didn't make enough to survive, but I made too much to get help. So they took away like all of my low income apartment, my food stamps, my OHP, and I couldn't pay my bills. So instead of having that humility that I now have humility where if I'm struggling, I can call somebody. I have a whole support group where, hey, like I'm struggling right now. Back then, I didn't have that. That was that piece that I didn't have. I didn't have myself surrounded with supportive people, and I still had that criminal pride. So I figured, well, I know what to do to get money, and I can do it myself because I'm not gonna look weak, in the eyes of somebody else. But now I've learned that that was the weak way out. That was the easy way out. And now today I'm really learning how to lean on others and realize that what we can't do by ourselves, we can do together.
Yeah,
And
beautiful.
it's been full circle for me. And now I'm actually able to help others when they come home. So,
Yeah, and can you describe how you do that? Like, what's your role at this point?
yeah. So at Golden Rule, I'm a peer support, but I'm also the. You're like, I don't
It's
want to.
like my arm is getting tired of this.
I am a peer support, but I am also the career pathways case manager. So I meet with folks through Zoom before they even come home, and we set some goals for them, and we set an IEP, which is a individual employment plan. And then when they get out, they come meet with me, and I teach them just to learn to love themselves and have that confidence when they go into a job interview,
Yeah,
and
which is
help
something
them.
we were chatting about before the market here started, was just this confidence and self love. Can you want to speak a little bit about that and how important that is?
Yeah, I think also a big part of it is, if we had that confidence and that self love, we wouldn't be out there doing the crimes that we were doing because we would know that we deserve something better. And for so long, I didn't know that I deserved anything better because that was the lifestyle I was kind of brought up in and kept myself surrounded by. So that's what I like to help other people learn is to love themselves and know that, your past is your past. Just
Right.
that is, it is not your present or your future for sure. And if you walk in somewhere with your head held high and just like make a statement that, yeah, I made a mistake, but I learned from it, you're going to have a lot better chances than if you let your past define you and keep you stuck where you were at, because um, it's all about confidence, I think, in letting that past go. And if you're still holding on to it and you don't process it and you don't let it go to a certain extent and have people around you that understand you and can relate to you, then it's going to keep like weighing you down.
Yeah.
All right, and I think our work environment is it kind of breeds that. We talked about how uh, we're surrounded with support and everything. I know I can go to you for anything, and those days that you see me in my head a little bit. You call my bullshit
Yeah.
and pull me out. I don't think if I was anywhere else and around people that weren't a lot like me, I would be thriving right now. It's
Yeah.
like that support, you know, professionally and outside of work and stuff.
Yeah.
Golden Rule really we really breed that.
That's beautiful.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And so, guys, we talked about with the impact on kids, and you had mentioned Brandy that you had a 2-year-old, and he witnessed, or was it he witnessed the feds coming in and doing that whole thing, and then what? Could you describe that situation for us, and like what impact you noticed it had on him? Because it's just this is one of the themes that have been coming up in our conversations. Is just the impact on children and the impact on family um, of incarceration, both at the time when the arrest happens, the period of time when an individual is in jail, and then when the person gets out, how to reconnect with the kid and sort of and as a result to reconnect with family and just how that all goes. So
Yeah.
anything you want to share with that about
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. The one that happened when he was 2 years old, like I said, he might not remember a lot of that one, but then I was on pretrial and they put me over in Medford, so I was clean and sober, didn't have family. It was just he and I, and for 2 years, and I rebuilt our life over here, got a house, everything. On
When he was 2 years old, was what happened to him when you were taken away? Was he
He stayed with my mom,
stayed with your
but I
mom? Okay.
only went to Jackson County for like 2 weeks, and then they let me go to the mom's program. That
Yeah.
way I could see my son before I went. And I graduated that, and they gave me pretrial for a little while to try to fight my case.
Yeah.
And I was on pretrial for roughly 2 years over here. And the damage that that did to my son, I think, was probably the worst because he got me 100%. I wasn't in my addiction. I was there mentally, physically, emotionally. Where before, I was still doing my thing. We had family around us, and then we did good over here for 2 years, and then I still had to go do my 5 years. So he got that ultimate bond that we'd never had before, and then I still had to go to prison.
So you were separated from him then for 5 years at
Yeah,
that point.
well, about three because I
About
got
3.
out. I
Yeah.
did the RDAP program. But yeah, I was away from him for 3 years, and he lived with my mom and dad. And then when I got out, I had to live at the work center for a little while. And then I got a house again, and he came over here, and
Yeah.
And we did good for about another 2 or 3 years. And that time that I was arrested, he was about 7. And it was just he and I. And they pulled me over and they put a gun to my face and like threw me on the ground. Just Donovan was old enough to remember that, and he is still traumatized by it. He lashes out in anger, where he gets mad at me and he'll say, "Just go back to jail." And I know for him that's fear.
Yeah.
Like he's afraid that it's going to happen again
Yeah.
because it did, you know. And so every day, that's all I do is just try really hard to prove to him, you know, and try to talk to him and tell him like, you can't change what you did last week. You can't change what you wore last week. Neither can I.
That's
You know,
right.
but
Yeah.
all I can do is teach you that from this day forward, I am going to be there for you.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing the effects on him in school. He just kind of doesn't really care. He doesn't try.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it's still buried in fear in the fact that, well, if I just try over here and build a life, my mom's just going to do it again and go back, and then I'm going to have to go back to Klamath Falls with my grandma, you know. And so, and he still uses that against me. He say, "This is not my home. My home is in Klamath. You left me," you know. So
Yeah.
it's really hurtful, but we're working through it. I have him in sports. I have had him talking to a therapist. He wouldn't open up at all. He doesn't talk about anything. He just holds everything in.
Yeah.
And during those little moments where he lashes out, I'm actually okay with it because I see him processing it a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't snap back at him. I just let him get it out
Yeah.
because he has to get that out somehow,
Yeah.
or he's not ever going to heal.
And like, how did that impact you? Like, did that, you know, like when you saw this happening to your child, just because of the choices you were making, like, did that have an effect on you
It did.
emotionally?
So when I was in my addiction, obviously we don't think about anything besides what we're doing. We're very selfish in our addiction. But then when I was in prison, I noticed him lashing out at my mom and dad a lot. He would scream and just like say, "I just want my mom. I want my mom."
Yeah.
And then he kind of got settled over there for a little while. But for me, it is so painful because my trauma as a child was being abandoned. And then because of my addiction and that I didn't break the cycle, I caused the same trauma in him,
Yeah.
abandonment. And so I know how he feels, and I know that it shatters your self esteem. And he doesn't have that confidence now, and it breaks my heart. You know, if I could go back and do it different, that would be the thing I would do different was just not get him involved in any of it, not bring him through any of it, not I mean, if I could do it different, I would have stopped using drugs or not even done it at all once I had a child.
Yeah.
But like I said, addiction is very cunning, and my addiction to money it just kind of kept me stuck there. And now
Yeah.
I see it in him. He wants to wear the dollar sign shirts. He wants all the expensive things. I see him like slowly following my footsteps, and it's him trying to buy his happiness externally, just like I did.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to watch your child like make all the same mistakes that you're making, and you can't really do anything but be there for him because he learned from you. And
Yeah.
that is one of the hardest things to face and deal with.
And pretty scary as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very scary.
And Desmond, do you want to share a little bit about your experience around this too, and what, and your child and your kids?
Well, you know, we have a lot of similarities and stuff with our kids. You know, I too went through a lot of abandonments with my parents being using and stuff, being out there in the streets and stuff, leaving us home, and I kind of did the same thing to my kid. You know,
Yeah.
out there in the streets and going back and forth in and out of prison and stuff. And I really can't blame her for her being hesitant about coming back in my life 150%. You know,
Yeah.
and her anger. You know, I can only hope that she is watching and seeing what I'm doing, and just like her, every day with the support that I have, I'm able to move forward. You know, and keep plugging at it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really important that we do keep on moving forward because like this lady right here, she's so freaking amazing. She turned out to be like one of my best friends and at work and one of my biggest supporters, like, you know, never giving up. And it's like, you know, as we're talking at work and stuff, it's like we're so similar. You know, we can't help but to lift each other up and hold each other up, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And just curious, like the experience of being incarcerated inside, like what, like, how much contact do you get with your kid? How much contact are you allowed with your kid? What could be different in there? What could be improved in there in terms of keeping the bond kind of alive between a parent and a kid? Because it's a very traumatizing experience as a young 2-year-old and a 7-year-old to be removed from your parents and for them to be locked up and for you to have no access to them. So, what was it like in there? Is there any programs that support parent-child contact? Like, how does it work?
Well, there's a few things in place, you know, video visits and stuff like that.
Video
But
visits, okay.
yeah, but there could be more. And I believe my friend here, she has some ideas on that and is currently working on some things.
Yeah.
So
You want to share those
yeah,
ideas, Brandon?
Yeah. So when I was incarcerated the last time, it was during COVID. So we were locked down pretty much the whole time, and we didn't get very many video visits. They shut down visiting altogether. So it's one of my ultimate goals, especially for federal pretrial. What I would like to do is have a before, during, and after support group for mothers or fathers or both and their kids when they're about to go to prison. Because when you're on pretrial, you build that relationship. Remember, like I was saying, and then
Yeah.
you still have to go away. So I would like there to be something to prepare the child and let them know it's not their fault,
Yeah.
that mama made a bad choice and she has to go on timeout, a big timeout.
Big time out.
And
Yeah.
then during, I would like there to be some type of age appropriate video visits, not just once every 3 weeks and not the parent having to pay $8 or whatever it is for it. I would like
So
there
that's
to
the
be
thing. The
some,
parents have to pay
yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of money in there just to
yeah,
have a
like
contact.
just
$5,
for like
$10.
15 minutes of a visit.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
And it's not very personal, you know, especially with a young boy who's angry or any kid, they won't open up to you on a video visit. So I would like to have some type of age appropriate where there's, you know, a workbook you guys can do together. I do half of it, put my handprint on it, mail it to him. He does the other half of it on the next video visit, and we talk about it. Or age appropriate as to prompting questions that can help the parents get their kids to open up, like what's going on in school,
Yeah.
what did you eat today, what's your favorite food, just anything to keep you connected. And then after, I would also like there to be a support group for the parents in particular, because I don't care if you've only done a month, you become emotionally institutionalized, and then you get out and you have this little person who emotionally needs you, and
Yeah.
you don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And so if there's some type of, you know, support even while you're in there, to have the parent working on how to rebond with your child,
Yeah.
because then the child already lost their parent, and then they come home and their parents not the same person. They're guarded and closed off, and you know, you learn while you're in there to shut your emotions and your feelings down in order to survive and do your time.
Yeah.
So your kid feels that when you come home. You know, they're very intuitive and they are resilient, but they don't understand.
They
Like
don't
my mom
understand.
left and she was hugging me and holding me, and then she comes back and she's not the same.
Right.
So I think that it would be very beneficial for some type of a support group before, during, and after. So I'm trying to set something like that up. It's just not real easy to
Yeah.
get that audience group, especially with federal pretrial, because the population that get in trouble federally is a lot smaller than state. And I still am not able to go into the jails or the prisons or anything to help people. I tried last month and I got denied. But I use that also as a story to inspire people that we're going to have doors shut in our face because of what we've done.
Yeah.
But it's not going to stop me. I'm going to try again next month, and I'm going
Right.
to try again next month, and I will get to go in there and help people.
Yeah.
You know,
You're determined. Yeah.
yeah.
Beautiful. And how about you, Desmond? What would you say in terms of, improving that connection between parent and child during? We'll just focus on during incarceration. While you're in there, because oh my God, like it's completely. All you have is a video visit. Like
Yeah.
kids need physical contact. They need to. There's a bond that happens, and you can't get that over a video call on a certain way. Even though you can, it's better than nothing. But
Right. Well, I think that there should be they should make it like a little easier to get the kids in. You know, for
yeah,
parents, like maybe I know there's a bus that runs like through all the prisons every now and then, but I think this should be a little bit more cost efficient for parents.
yeah.
You know,
And
or
is
grandparents.
there a situation where like how far was the prison from where your kids were?
I was way out by Idaho.
Oh my God! And
So
your children are where?
my daughter's in Eugene and my
Okay.
son is here.
And you're
So
way out in Idaho.
yeah, so that's like you gotta save up for that. and
The
I mean
cost,
that's
right?
gas, that's hotel, and I mean the state makes a lot of money.
And I was out in Dublin, California, so
Dublin, California, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
Like, and your
so
kid is
far
in
away.
Medford, right?
Yeah, well,
So
yeah,
he's in Klamath Falls, but
in
yeah,
Clement
in
Falls,
Oregon.
yeah.
yeah. So
So what a barrier, right? Like there you go. Like how to get a kid from Eugene to Idaho, it's like, oh my God,
right,
like the cost of that.
in that Coffee Creek, it was like that was one of my things I talked to my intake counselor about was like keeping me closer to the valley because I was minimum status and stuff, under 3 years, and they could have easily just put me somewhere right there, Columbia River or one of those other San Am or something like that.
Yeah,
So it would be more cost efficient for me and my kid to, reconnect because where they got the program out there in Baker City. Yeah, we're all out there. We're working on our lives for 6 months, but that connection with our family isn't there. Because I mean, there's hardly nothing out there. So I think they should really bring those kind of programs closer into, the town and
yeah,
kind of switch things up a little bit.
totally.
Yeah.
And does it have an impact on the kids to be actually visiting a prison and often kids just repeat what their parents do or their parents are role models. So do you think that also has an impact on like a child's future? Because
Well, it does
if dad is
because
locked up,
they're worried about us for
yeah,
one. And the touch. If they're able to touch us and see us, and we can, like my daughter, she's got to see my face. That video visit, she's just crying, and I can't reach out and wipe her tears.
yeah,
And she's like, what's really going on in there and stuff. She doesn't see that. I mean, pretty much have to stand up and do a full circle so she can see that I'm not hurt anyway.
yeah.
But I think if it's really important for that connection. So keep parents closer,
Keep parents
and
closer. And
yeah.
then how long are the prison visits? Like if they do get there, like what's the length of time that they get to see you?
Well, sometimes you get that special visit where they can come in for 2 days
2 days,
in a
okay.
row and stuff, but it's usually, a couple hours, and they have to feed people. So you leave for a little bit and then come back in the evening for a couple hours.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So it's a pretty short amount of time
yeah,
given the time that you've had apart. Like you have to rebond and reconnect, and then all of a sudden it's time to go. And you got to go back
yeah,
to
that's the
things. And
hardest part. And I know she was a lot farther away.
yeah,
So
you want to describe that your experience, Brandy,
Yeah,
with the
so
distance piece?
they
And
do have some programs in there, but it's for kids that are close by, right? I think
right,
it's like I don't remember where the kids could come every weekend
yeah,
and they would actually do an activity together. But for kids that live far away, they can't even apply for that program. I think it was called Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts or something where the kids could come in. But even during the visits, you just sit at a table with them, and so it's not very personal. And if you get up and move around, then they're gonna get attention on you and all this stuff. And so it's not really like you're getting to know your kid because your
yeah,
kid is intimidated as well, sitting there kind of looking around. And I think as far as the impact it has on children, it's kind of a catch 22, right? Because you want them to be afraid of going to prison, but then when they go there and they visit their parent, it doesn't look that bad. So
right,
when they really say that prison will make or break you, right? And once you've been there and you see that it's not as bad or it's tolerable because you adapt to your situation, then you're not afraid of anything. You're not afraid to go back out and do the same thing and go back. And I think that was part of the thing that I regret really big about my son coming in to visit me the few times that he did was in his mind, he thinks prison's not that bad. My
right,
mom survived it. So then when he's acting rebellious, there's not really much that you can, remind him or even hold over his head. Like, you don't want to go to jail. It's not a place to be. He's like, well, you did it and it wasn't that bad. I went there to see you. And so it's kind of like, on both ends, it's a bad experience for kids altogether.
yeah, on both ends, right,
Yeah.
yeah. And what's it like during like key moments during the year? Christmas and holidays and birthdays. Like that's a hard time for everybody, but like in particular with this situation, how was that?
Yeah, it was definitely hard. I think because you don't want to take your kids' holiday away and make them be in a car and in a motel for the Christmas, so they don't get their Christmas tree with grandma and grandpa and all of that. But you also want to see them.
Yeah.
right? So then
Yeah.
you kind of have to determine, like, am I being selfish asking him to come see me on Christmas? The visiting room is going to be so packed, busy, and full that it's not going to be very personal. But you still want to see your kid, but you want him to have a good holiday also.
Yeah.
They do have things in there like the angel tree where they come and you can put your name on a thing, and a church in your local area will deliver your kid a present. So
Yeah.
they do have a few things like that. But I would definitely say holidays are really hard. I
Yeah.
remember trying to make little cards for him and Santa wish list and sending them to him. And then when he'd try to send it back, they wouldn't let it because it had glitter on it or it had,
Right.
marker on it. And it's
Yeah.
just, and then he gets it sent back. I remember one Valentine's Day, he tried to send me a really big card with a couple pictures. When I was on pretrial, I would take him out, and everything we did, I would take pictures and I put it in a journal for him to read every day. And then I mailed myself like 200 pictures before I got there. So every week I would send him one to remind him of things that we did.
Yeah.
And he tried to send me one back for Valentine's Day in a card. And he was so proud of himself. And then it got sent back to him.
Mm.
So even that is like a huge letdown.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad.
Pretty sad. And you notice that that comes up even now, like those memories when holidays come around and when birthdays come
Yeah,
around.
he will throw that stuff in my face when he's hurting. I want to say when he's mad, but I have to look deeper, and I know
Yeah.
it's when he's hurting,
When he's
and say,
hurting.
yeah, well, this is the first year that I actually get to see you for 3 Christmases in a row. Or, like, this is the first time I've got to go to the same school zone for more than 2 years.
Yeah.
And I just have to support him in that because it was due to my mistake. It's just, yeah, it's definitely hard.
Yeah. Anything you wanted to add, Desmond, with that?
No, with my kid, we always did this thing with our hand. I send her the right hand, she send me the left hand. So it makes us one. You're always running around trying to figure something out, and a lot of times it depends on when you get to your institution, um, what time of year and stuff. If you're going to miss the deadline to get something like the angel tree in or something like that,
Yeah.
so it makes it really tough because you want your kid to have something.
Watch your
You know,
yeah.
definitely scheduling those visits on the phone and stuff. And a lot of times, if you don't get to it quick enough and stuff, it's all booked up.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff causes fights and all kind of trauma in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, the impact of incarceration on you guys, on the individual, before, during, and after is one thing, right? And we've been exploring those topics here um, through interviews, but just to see now the impact that it has on the kids and family, it's also a whole other piece to it.
yeah,
And so I'm so grateful you guys are willing to kind of come down and just talk about this because it's not being talked about very often and there's some change needed in the community. There's some change needed in the laws, of the state. There's some changes, big changes needed. And so, if there's anything you would change about the system right now, given what it is currently, what would it be? Just in relationship to this issue. Um,
um, I like I said, I think they need to make it more a little easier for parents and their children to stay connected,
yeah,
and not just over the phone and all that stuff. I mean, there are little things that they can do to help stay connected. A little bit more, especially during the holidays.
yeah,
You know, maybe open up a uh, special transport just for the holidays, to get them up there. Maybe, throw us a bone a little bit, phone calls instead of paying. You have to put $30 on the phone just to, make a few minute phone call, give it to us for free.
yeah.
I know in California right now, they're not, all their phone calls are free.
All the phone calls are free. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a little change like that would make a huge
Yeah.
difference, right? Just yeah, make it less expensive.
Right. Well, like for me, I didn't have a bunch of people putting money on my books and stuff. I earned like $35 a month, working in the kitchen. So, I had to budget that and really, if I wanted to talk to my kid, I had to sacrifice, an extra little snack or shoes that I needed, or
Yeah.
even sometimes hygiene stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, just a little things.
I agree with that too. I know that they pay us very little in there, right? I was a forklift driver and warehouse worker, and I got, I think, $60 a month. So a lot of
60
women in
bucks a
there
month,
I
yeah.
saw, they were still forced into that hustle mentality of, putting themselves on websites or doing what it's still hustling people to get money. And
Yeah.
so it's still keeping them in that like criminal mentality just in order to stay in touch with their children and have that money to make the phone call home. And so that is a full circle there. And I agree with Desmond. If we could have, I know they wouldn't allow all phone calls to be free, but I think if there was a minor child involved, they should have a certain like a phone that they can go to if your parent is incarcerated, and it has unlimited paid phone calls from your mom or your dad on there. I know they would probably limit all phone calls being free because people make like different phone calls.
Right.
But when children are involved, I think there should be something in place like that where your parent can always call you. And in like he was saying, it is hard to get to the phone sometimes, or to the video visit, or you're in lockdown, so you don't get to make that video visit, and you'd already told your child like, I'll see you on this day. And I think there should be like designated times for parents to use the phone just to call their children.
Yeah.
Or they can have inside if the counselors were a little bit more. I know they're overloaded, but if there was a particular counselor for parents to make that time at least once a week for each person on their caseload, to call their kid or to have that video visit, a paid one.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to back up even a little bit more as to the effect that it has on kids and what I would like to see different. I went to OHU, is that what it is? The college in Ashland.
OSU?
OSU, yeah. And I spoke
OSU,
to
yeah.
the criminology class about,
Criminology class, yeah.
yeah, about, to the people that are going to be police officers and judges, and told them, if the first time I got in trouble, instead of them talking down to us and making us feel smaller than we already do because we're out there doing wrong and we know that, I probably wouldn't have continued to go back and do the same thing. They like dehumanize you and talk down to you, and then they expect you to get out and do good. The whole time you're in there, they're like, belittling you, talking down to you, where instead if somebody would have said, hey, like, I know you're struggling right now, what can I do to help you?
Yeah.
Like, I see potential in you, let's get you enrolled in school, let's do this, instead of, oh, you're just going to go back to jail, you're going to be nobody, you're going to let your kid down. Like, that's not what people need out there when they're suffering and struggling already. And then also the time that I got arrested and my son was 7 years old. The year before that, he was a cop for Halloween. He still had that innocent mentality. After that, he hated them. And I've never had a violent charge on my record. I've never had a weapon charge. And for them to put a gun right in my face in front of my 7-year-old child, and then they say that they're trying to protect the community and make it better. I don't see how that's making the next generation any better.
Right. It's completely unnecessary in a certain way, huh?
The what?
It's completely unnecessary,
Yeah.
in a situation like that. There's a beautiful program up in Eugene. I think it's called Cahoots, and they now have mental health workers be first responders to situations like this. And so that's sort of an idea that's spreading out now in that area, and hopefully it's going to come down here as well, because a lot of police officers can't deal with these kinds of situations. All they know how to do is just kind of take control and make sure everybody's safe. And I'm not downing the police officers here, but I'm just saying there's lack of experience and lack of knowledge about how to respond to specific circumstances that involve children like this. So there are programs that are helping, and I hope that sort of starts to spill in more. But these suggestions also are just golden. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Keep putting it out there that this change can occur. And people will start voting this stuff in, and we can see something shift in this arena, because it's a huge impact on the community. It's a huge impact on our children, and it's a huge impact on the next generation of folks coming up and what they end up doing with their lives. So we so appreciate you guys exposing this to the community and coming down here to have that conversation here at the market. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.